In the previous section we added a pop-up where the user can enter their node, but we're not persisting the data anywhere. Right now we will figure out how can we store the node that the user entered. And to do it, the best place to start is our Chrome documentation. So when I arrive to the Chrome extension documentation, I can just search for storage and see that there is a reference which says use the Chrome.storage API to store, retrieve and track changes to user data, which is exactly what we want to do. And immediately after it says that it requires the storage permission, which we saw previously that we could do it in the manifest.json file. However, as I told you before, we're not directly editing manifest.json, but rather setting the configuration in wxt.config.ts, which is super empty. Now let's find out how to set the permissions there. I head over to wxt.dev and see their guides about configuration, manifest, and I see that it has a section for permissions. It seems like it already mentions storage and tabs, both of them which I will need, so I can just copy and paste it. Let's save our config file and head back to the Chrome documentation, which has a section for usage, and I can just copy it to see what it does. Main.ts, I can store it here. That value. Chrome is underlined, and that is because I'm using wxt, which doesn't know what Chrome is. Since it's a browser agnostic framework, I need to replace it simply with browser, and then it will take care of it. All good, let's save and see what happens. I open my pop-up and type in something. Test my storage. If I click on inspect, I can see that the value is set 15 times. Probably that's how long my text is. But where is it set? Where is the storage information? To get there, I can open the extensions, click on the service worker. Remember, if it's not visible, click on the developer mode. And here, head over application. You can see a bunch of stuff here that's totally not relevant, but there is one item called extension storage, which I click on and go to local, which has key, test my storage. So let's try to make sense of it. browser.storage.local. This local will probably refer to this one, and then set the key, which is key, to our node text value. Amazing. We get some basic idea, but let's try to make sense of this local first. If I move the mouse above it, it says items in the local storage area are local to each machine. But what other storage areas exist? If I go back to the API reference, I can immediately see that there is a section called storage areas. There are 4 types. If you choose the local storage, this means that the data is stored on the user's computer. If you use sync, this means that if the user is logged in with their Google profile, the data that you store will be persisted across the various devices. And if you use session, then you might have guessed, the data is only stored in the current user session and will be gone when the user restarts the browser. The 4th storage area is called managed, and it's mostly relevant for enterprises to enforce policies. We will not deal with that. In fact, I would prefer to use sync because it seems like the best option and it feels like it's more user-friendly. So let's change it simply to sync. It's not that difficult, and maybe the key shouldn't be key, but let's say node. Okay, I made some changes. I don't have to restart anything, I just add a new node. And if I open the service worker and click on the sync tab, I can see that the key is indeed node and the value is add the new node, which I just typed in. Fantastic. Now how to move forward from here? I want to store a node for every page the user visits assigned to the given page. So whenever we visit a new page, we can store a node, and later when we return, we can retrieve the node that belongs to that page. To get started, we need to figure out on which page we are. I come back to my main.ts file, and here I access the Chrome tabs, not Chrome, browser wxt.tabs.query function, which queries the given tabs, get all tabs that have specific properties, or all tabs if no properties are specified. Well, I want to fetch the one that is active and that is in the current window. You can learn more about the tabs API in the same reference where we learned about storage, but I don't go there now. Instead, I load tabs into this constant and I want to log it to see what's in it. If I come back to my extension, let's open a test page, and it is still tied to the typing functionality, so I will just add it here, type something. And if I come to the logs, oh, I see I got a lot of promises, but no information about the tab. And that is because this query function is an async function, so I need to wait for it. And since now I have an await here, I need to make this function an async. Okay, let's try once again. Alright, now I indeed get an array back which has one item, and indeed it is our currently active tab with the title Wikipedia, URL, status complete, and a bunch of other information such as the tab ID. We don't need any of this except the URL. You might be wondering, why do I get back an array and not just a single tab if there is only one tab active? And the reason is that the query method on the tabs API is always returning an array, because you can imagine that you're querying tabs by different criteria and multiple tabs match those criteria. So as simple as it is, we always return an array. However, we can be sure that there is only one active tab in the current window, so we can simply do this. Or to take advantage of JavaScript syntax, I can also do this. Let's print its URL. Let me just check if it indeed worked. Test. And I can see that I got the URL. Now this URL might be very complex. It might contain hashes or query strings, and I don't really care about those when I'm stating the nodes. I only care about the domain and the path. So I'll create a helper method that can extract just that. My helper method's name going to be getPageKey. It takes a string or URL and it will return a string. Now I will convert our URL into an URL object. And I simply return the URL object hostname and the URL object's path name. And I can use this method to get the keys for our nodes. I want to store three information: the text of the node, the created at, and the updated at date. The node is coming from node text.value, created at is a new date, and updated at is also a new date. And I can just store it instead of node text.value. Before I move forward, I want to mention an important thing about storage. Storage can store any data that is JSON formatted, and new date is actually an object, so it's better to convert it into an ISO string. There, I can test it in the browser. My first note, and remember, to see the saved data I need to click on storage node, and I can see that everything is indeed saved as I expected. But how would I store the nodes for the various pages? Should I create a new item for every URL? I don't like this approach because what if later on I want to have special keys such as settings? So instead I will create a new key called node storage, and node storage will contain an array of objects where every key is the page key and every object is a node data object. So let me just create up here. It's an empty object for now, and here I can assign our node's data to the relevant key, which I haven't set yet, so that will be the next thing I do, which I do it here. Get page key tab.url. It's underlined, and it says that undefined is not assignable to type string. Now the problem that I'm facing is that, as I told you, query might return 0, 1, 2 or many tabs, and although we can be sure right now that there's always an active tab, the expected results might be empty, so I need to have a check for that. And it's this simple. And just put everything in this if condition, and that error is already gone. Now the second is a TypeScript issue, that it doesn't know what goes into that empty object, and I will deal with that in a little bit later. The only thing is left to do is to save the node's storage instead of node data. And I can just do this. Alright, let's go back to our browser to see if it worked. I head over to Wikipedia and leave a test command. And if I open our service worker under sync, I should see that now it's called node storage, and it does indeed have the Wikipedia as a key for our node. If wxt sometimes doesn't update, then you can just head back to your terminal, stop it and start again. It happens from time to time. Now it worked for me, but sometimes I notice that there are glitches and I need to restart the wxt dev command. But amazing, so I could store Wikipedia. Let's have another one, let's say YouTube. YouTube node. And if I inspect my service worker, I can see that YouTube node is there, but the Wikipedia one disappeared. I have a very simple explanation. Node storage is an empty object, and every time we open the pop-up, this whole script runs from scratch. So it will always set node storage to an empty object. So let's start by fetching the data from the storage. I can do it with an asynchronous function on Chrome.tabs, and of course it's browser.tabs.sync.set, and I pass in the name of the key which I want to retrieve, nodes storage. It's not tabs, browser.storage.sync. And the result is a key value per object. So we are not just getting back node storage as it is, because we might query for multiple items from the storage all at once. So we will always get back a key value per object, and we can do it like result.node storage, and if it doesn't exist, then use the empty object. So let's see how it is now. I had the YouTube comment, so I head over to Wikipedia and leave a note there too. And if I click on the service worker, I can see that I have both nodes saved just as expected. Working with the storage API can get a bit of annoying, so wxt came up with their own storage API, which simplifies the querying and it's browser agnostic. So let's change into that. I head over to wxt's documentation and search for storage. wxt is built-in storage. You can see that I can just import it in my files without the need to install anything, and the permissions are already set. I can just await storage.getItem local and then the name of the key. So let me do that. And then we can get rid of this line. And similarly, when I'm setting the data, I can just use await storage.set item, where the key will be sync not storage and the value will be not storage. And I don't need the rest. This looks so much simpler, but we still have this TypeScript issue, which says that it doesn't know what not storage is, because it can be like an empty object or anything. So I just create types for the not storage and the not data. Let's start with not data, which, if you remember, had a node, which was a string. I created at date, which was also stored as a string, and then updated at, which was also stored as a string. And for the not storage type, I have a key with the type of string, and for every key I have a not data. And then here, when I define not storage, I can just set the type for not storage, and now the error disappeared. Alright, we're getting there. Everything is done, except I want to clean up our functionalities a little bit. I don't like when we have utility functions in the main code base, so I will create a new folder in the root folder structure called utils, and I will just copy the getPageKey function and paste it there in a new file, getPageKey.ts. And of course, the pop-up's main TS file is complaining because it cannot find getPageKey. I want to show you a cool way how to import it. getPageKeys from @/utils/getPageKey, which is useful because it will know the relations also when we are building our output bundle. As a further cleanup, I remove all the unneeded console logs, and I think we're in a good state. We have only one thing left to do, which is to actually load the existing nodes when we open the pop-up. Because if you notice, whenever I click on it, even if I already have something saved, it's empty. To do that, I create a new method called loadExistingNode. It will be an async function because I need to query the tabs again. Okay. And I will just copy this over. I know it's redundant, but I will maybe use it in another place, so I'm not focusing so much on optimization. Now I get the key, and I already have not storage, so I can say I load the data into node data, and if node data exists and it's not empty, then I set the value of the text area to match the node data.nodes, because that's how I set it here. I have a type error that node text is possibly null, but in our case I'm sure that it's not, so I just put an exclamation point at the end since it's literally above it. And all is left to do is to call this method. This will be called every time when the user opens the pop-up. Let's see. I click on YouTube and I see the YouTube comment. I click on Wikipedia and I see the wiki note. In this lesson, we learned about how to persist data, how to save notes and retrieve them later. We also learned about the various storage areas. If you think about it, we have a working MVP because the user can leave a note and come back. However, it's still far from being user-friendly. For example, we should maybe indicate to the user in one way or another that they already left a note on a given page. So let's do that.